Hall of Famer Gil Brandt passed away yesterday at the age of 91. He entered the Hall of Fame in 2019. Legendary figure in the NFL, key component in the rise of the Dallas Cowboys. Peter, what do you remember most about Gil?
You know, Mike, I think Gil Brandt was always one of those guys. He was just there at everything. He was there at the Super Bowl every year talking football. He was the king of the scouting combine for probably 15 years, ushering every big player to press conferences and, you know, in their ears and giving them advice and being the centerpiece at dinner with coaches at the scouting combine and then at the league meetings. And he was just sort of the godfather of scouting, quite honestly. For those who don't really know about the Dallas Cowboys in the 60s when Gil Brandt, Tex Schramm, and Tom Landry took over, they basically used a computerized form of scouting for the first time to put factors into a player's profile that had never been in there before. Case in point, you know, if a guy, for instance, played basketball, Gil Brandt really, really liked that. He liked guys who were big basketball players or big baseball players. He liked athletes who were good in other sports. And he ended up drafting a few of those guys, having them come in and make the Dallas Cowboys. And I think the other thing is a lot of innovators in the NFL. George Young was open with the New York Giants saying that they learned a lot from how Dallas scouted players, using psychological evaluations, which nobody did before the Cowboys did, to look at players. And so he just was one of these guys who had incredible stories and was a great resource for so many people over the years, you know, from Bill Belichick to Roger Goodell to Paul Tagliabue. He was always one of these guys who was available and wanted to give his expertise in whatever the subject was. And, you know, personally for us in the media, I think one of the valuable things that he did is that every year he went to all these pro days, or went to a lot of pro days, and knew everybody at the scouting combine. So I remember many years, my mock drafts, my last call was to Gil Brandt, because he would know. He'd be talking to people in every team, you know, and he would know great intelligence on almost every team and what they might do in the draft that year. The other funny thing is about Brandt is he always felt like he wanted to know a little bit about your background. Like he once asked me, he said, "Hey, Peter, where'd you go to high school?" I said, I was in a small town in Connecticut, Enfield, Connecticut, Enfield High School. And he was racking his brain. He prided himself on knowing nicknames of high schools around the country. He had a weird photographic memory. And so the next time I saw him, he said, "Peter King, Enfield, Connecticut, the Enfield High School Raiders." And he just, you know, he had gone somewhere, he'd looked it up, he did whatever, but he found that out because he knew that the next time he saw me, he wanted to get one over on me. And so he's just one of these guys who was very active in the NFL till even a couple of years before he died. And obviously his last public event basically was, you know, a totally insensitive thing he said about Dwayne Haskins after he died. And I know he regretted that. And I guess I look at that, Mike, and say, you know, none of us should be judged on our worst moment. And Gil Brandt had a lot of great moments in and around the NFL.
I've heard you say multiple times over the years that the ultimate standard for someone's fitness to be in the Hall of Fame is whether or not you can tell the story of the NFL without that person. And you cannot tell the story of the modern NFL without Gil Brandt, who has had a hand in it for decades. So Gil Brandt passed at the age of 91, Hall of Famer, one of the all-time greats. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.